Welcome to the Project with Sam and Lewis, the podcast that looks at projects throughout pop culture and history. I'm Sam.
And I'm Lewis.
And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about the 5th episode of the Lazarus Project.
We certainly are. We're over halfway down the home straight of this series.
What is it, 8 episodes?
8 episodes.
Oh, God, we're almost there, aren't we? Yeah.
We're in a month's time, we will all be out of Lazarus.
We will, unless they decide to renew it for another season, and then we'll be back again, time looping our way through the second season.
That'd be quite good, actually.
Yeah, we'll probably be like a year away, so
yeah,
it'll be after 100th episode.
Oh, wow.
Potentially, depending on when it comes out. Might be longer than that. But before we get into anything, we've got time codes in the episode description. So if you want to skip ahead to when we start talking about Lazarus, you can do so. We're also going to be talking about a couple of things in personal projects, namely the first episode of She-Hulk, plus a couple other things. I think you've watched something pretty big, Lewis.
Yes, I watched the first episode of House of the Dragon.
Yeah, and I watched... Oh, yeah, go on.
And the other thing I watched with far less hype was the New Mutants.
Oh, God, okay, yeah. I talked about that a couple of months ago, I think. Maybe longer, yeah. But that'd be interesting. We can have a little chat about that. I've also watched like 3 episodes of The Sandman, because I mentioned I read the comics. So have a little chat about that. I also watched Death on the Nile, which I know you watched a couple of months ago. So
cool.
We've
got a hefty
we've got
personal
loads
project
to get through. So yeah, if you want to skip straight to that, you're very welcome to. But you know, we've got a good episode of Lazarus here. Maybe not a great episode, but a good episode. This episode will be great. But before that, how are you, Lewis?
Yeah, fine. Just trucking.
It sure sounds like it. Yeah.
It's been a ridiculous week at work.
Yeah.
But, hopefully things are changing in the near future.
Okay.
Because I told my manager things need to change in the near future.
Okay.
How about you?
Yeah, not too bad. Yeah. Busy weekend. Had a bit of a barbecue bash.
You did for your birthday?
For my birthday. So still kind of recovering from that, to be perfectly honest. But
it was good fun.
Yeah, I'm glad you had a good time. Hopefully everyone did. I can't say I remember all of it. So there's a little hint about how that went. But yeah, I'm pretty good generally. Yeah, pretty good. God, there's some crashes outside. Bangs and crashes. But what's the name of that first segment then, Lewis?
You mean this segment? Project News. That is the name. We haven't got much this week. I did open various different potential news things that just didn't really have anything.
Didn't have that je ne sais quoi that we needed.
Yeah, so I picked one that had the most of nothing.
That's what a podcast, isn't it? The best of a bad bunch.
Yes, it is from Kotaku. Kotaku. I knew I'd butcher that. Elden Ring fans, incredible DLC concept project almost looks real and playable.
Wow.
So, have you played Elden Ring?
I haven't yet. I've played other Dark Souls games before, and this is the kind of latest installment in that.
Yeah, and was this one that George R. R. Martin was involved in?
Yeah, he was announced as being like the lead writer on it, and then I think, as with lots of things with him, his involvement kind of got less and less over the project. And he still is supposed to have come up with certain design elements and story elements, but yeah.
I know some people who really, really rave about this. I've never played it. Christina tried playing it, but found it a bit repetitive and samey of like, you fight this person and then you go and fight this person.
Yeah,
and you
it's
go and fight this person.
Kind of time loopish in a way, to be honest. Yeah.
But anyway, a Elden Ring fan, Eugenia Liza, started to think like, oh, how could she make her own like DLC out of this?
Yeah.
And then kind of developed it more and more to make like a really elaborate concept art.
Okay.
And basically got to the point where it's like, oh, this is like basically playable.
Right.
There's a trailer for it. It's called Chanting Winged Dames. It looks quite cool.
Can't say I love that name, to be perfectly honest. No.
But it looks quite cool, and I think because it's kind of getting a bit of hype, it may actually be something that they
it might
look
be something they
into.
jump on.
And yeah, it seemed like one of the things where she was just kind of like, "Oh, this would be quite interesting if this," and then just kind of got carried away with it, and now it's like, "Oh, I've created like this whole thing." Yeah, it looks. It's like whole quest lines, NPCs, bosses, different fights, and storylines.
What was it? Chanting winged dames.
Chanting winged dames.
So I'm guessing like flying witch women is what.
There's like a picture of like. It looks like the skeleton of a witch.
Okay.
With like long grey hair.
Yeah.
So I guess it's kind of built around that kind of thing, kind of in fitting with Elden Ring.
Yeah, it's kind of like a gothic medieval fantasy stuff, isn't it?
But yeah, obviously it's not complete. It may never be complete because it's just a bit of fun. But she seems to have progressed quite a lot, and people are like, yeah, this looks really.
It could
really
well
great.
be something that comes out as like a mod for PC stuff.
Yeah,
because I know with console stuff it would be a bit harder to get it going. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and it's always nice to see like when games come out and get popular, and people are like, "How could I put my own twist on this?" And it's like, "Oh, actually, that's pretty cool." So fair play to her.
Good for you. Not you, but Eugenie.
I didn't do it. But yeah, it's a slow news week.
Yeah, it's okay. We've got lots of other stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I saw a couple of bits of news. I was trying to find an article with project in the title for us to talk about. I saw that like Arctic Monkeys have announced their next album, and I was like, are they? Because that's the sort of thing being like, the next Arctic Monkeys project is.
But as you found, sometimes they just go straight for album, don't they?
Yeah.
I saw they played a new song at a live thing recently, and people were like, "Oh, it sounds really cool." I think the album's called The Car.
Yeah,
and
Alex Turner said it's their loudest album.
Yeah, it's a bit more like down to earth. Well, I mean, the last one you can't get less down to earth than that.
Yes, and very, kind of less loud for an Arctic Monkeys album.
More like a Shadow Puppets record, really, wasn't it? But yeah, well, maybe 1 week soon we'll be talking about that.
Yes.
We'll have a bit more dedicated time.
But yeah, the Lazarus Project, episode 5.
Yes, which I didn't give my own little subtitle to, as I've been doing, because I watched it about an hour ago, so I haven't really had time to process it.
And the subtitle could be episode 5, I guess.
So that's what it's called. It'll be George continues to break bad, but in a slightly less surprising way than last time.
Yeah.
Plus, it's Archie's backstory.
It's Archie's turn.
Yeah, one of my first notes is, it's an Archie episode.
Yeah, it's not as much focused on Archie as like the Shiv episode was.
I mean, it's almost equally focused on Shiv this episode, isn't it? Despite him being in George's boot for most of it in the present day.
Yeah. But yeah, so as
spoilers.
As if you want deeper chat on who's in it and what they do.
And who's in whose boot.
Yeah, but summary, created by Joe Barton, starring Papa Asidu, Tom Burke, Angie Mahindra, Caroline Quinton, Charlie Clive, Lorne MacDonald, Brian Gleeson. Do you want to have a guess at what this episode was rated on IM database?
Like 5.
Ooh, that's low for a TV episode. It's 6.4.
Okay.
Which is the lowest of the series. And I also saw that the final 3 episodes are the highest 3 rated
Really?
episodes.
Okay, that's good to know.
So particularly the finale is the highest rated episode, which is always good.
That's really good. Yeah,
they're not Game of Thrones in it.
That's made me quite excited because, to be perfectly honest, this episode it didn't really match up with some of the ones we've watched.
I think the fact that the last 2 were really good.
Yes, I think that was, and there was good stuff in it, and like it wasn't a bad episode. It just wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a great
as
episode.
Exciting.
Yeah, but I think it did important stuff, and it set stuff in motion.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, but we'll talk about it, of course.
But before we start, something you tell us where we're up to with this series.
I was thinking about this while I was watching the previously on, and I was thinking what I should have done, and I'm now wishing I hadn't started the sentence. But what I should have been doing is recapping the whole season so far for people who hadn't done it.
I agree.
Okay, so strap yourselves in. So,
I mean, like, as quick as you
Yeah.
can.
George was a software guy. He had an app. And he joined like the Lazarus Project, and they turned back time to stop extinction level events. There's like a emo guy called Shiv, and there's this woman who's like his mentor, George's mentor, called Archie. George's girlfriend, because there was time loops. Oh, I'm getting confused. But anyway, he gets joined into this thing because he's got this thing where he can remember the time loops when they reverse time.
Yeah.
They reverse back to the checkpoint, which is the 1st of July each year. If it passes that, it's like a video game and it checkpoints you. Just after that, they're doing this mission, and his girlfriend, unrelated to the mission, gets killed in a road traffic accident. A rubbish truck hits her.
Yeah.
The mission is a success, which means they're not going to turn back time. He breaks bad, works with this guy called Rebrov, who is the guy who stole like a atomic nuclear bomb, whatever.
Yep.
And he sneaks off and gets this bomb, and then Shiv's going after him. They had like this great chase through Romania, and Shiv confronts him and he shoots Shiv, and he's like, I'm going to bring Sarah back. But Shiv's like, I'm going to get you. And he's like, I know, even though he's dead, but he's going to get revived because it's... and that's kind of where it ended. The this IT guy got like tricked into getting killed. This is really confusing for everyone listening. This IT guy, he was like the loose end basically, and George told him to go to see Rebrov, the prisoner, and he got him to say this code word, which to Rebrov was meant to kill him. And so that loose end's gone, but it's raised some alarms in the Lazarus Project. They don't realize that George is on this AWOL mission. So as we start in this episode, George is in Romania. He's just killed Shiv. The IT guy, Ryan, has just been killed in Lazarus, and no one in Lazarus has any idea of all this mysteries that's going on.
Yeah.
That last part made a bit of sense there, hopefully. Maybe not the 2 minutes leading up to it.
If you want to understand everything Sam's just said, go back and listen to our previous 4 episodes on this.
Yes.
You can just listen to the main bit.
Yeah, there's also like loads of time loops and flashbacks. Most episodes feature at least kind of a B plot of flashbacks.
Yeah.
And this episode is no different to that.
It certainly isn't. And it starts in 2011.
Yeah.
And there's a ball going on.
A fancy do, which we find out is to do with Cambridge University.
Yep. And Archie's there.
She is. She's all dolled up, all balled up, she is. And she's drinking her champagne, which we find out is free for students of Cambridge.
She keeps asking for more.
And she's approached by somebody, isn't she?
Yes, Matthew Rogers.
Is that his character name or his actor name?
That's the character name. He says he had an appointment with her earlier and she didn't go to. And he's like, have you considered your future? And she goes on a big rant being like, she literally spends 2 minutes talking about how great she was as a kid.
It's like it's like her CV, but in like short and
then she's like, do you think somebody who's done all that hasn't considered their future?
Yeah, and then he's like, so what do you want to do? And she's like, I don't know.
Yeah, which I thought was quite funny.
It shows that she's like a massive overachiever.
Yeah.
Which is why
clearly intelligent woman.
People like him are trying to recruit her.
Yes. And then she figures out what he's doing, and she's like, you MI5 or MI6?
Well, she says 5 or 6, which is funny because we had a conversation a couple episodes ago about these annoying like open questions that they use in kind of writing of TV shows.
Yeah,
I think this is a good example of that, where you understand what it is and it's a question someone would ask.
Yeah, whereas
the one we had before was like, how fucked, and it's like, how fucked am I in this situation? Or I don't even know. It was like
like, how fucked is like, what do you mean? How fucked is the situation? Like,
what does that mean? How much do you want to
she's just like 5 or 6.
Yeah. And he's like, whichever. He's like, I'm in the best one. So that's all you need to know. It turns out it's MI5 because
I can't remember which one's which. Which one's James Bond?
6 is supposed to be international, and 5 is
domestic.
Yeah, it's a bit like CIA, FBI.
FBI. And James Bond's MI6, isn't he?
Yes. Right. Even though he does internal stuff as well, but I guess that's the
international threats.
Yes, I suppose so. he finishes the conversation by being like, "Oh, by the way, your price tag's sticking out of your dress," to show she's not got it all figured out. She's a
Yeah.
bit, and he's like, "Oh," she's like, "Oh, damn spies," or whatever. Like as if you met other spies before. Come on.
No, she's just done a James Bond marathon, and she's
Yeah.
like, "God, spies are terrible." But then we get 3 years later.
Yeah.
And she's in the back of a car.
She's got an edgy haircut. She's a bit older. She's a bit edgy.
She's wearing all black, and then there's like a police car chasing them.
Yeah, and she's in a group with like what look like a bunch of skinheads.
Yeah, and they've
Not
all got like
100%
guns.
sure how she infiltrated that gang if they're the skinheads that they appear to be.
Yes, but they get away from the police.
Yes, they drive past a burrito truck, and
Yes.
this guy they do like the passing. She looks out the window at this guy, and he looks like he knows something, but it just turns out it's a bit of kind of fate situation going on there, isn't it?
But she gets home, and Shiv is sitting at her dining room table with a thermos of tea, and she's like, "Who the fuck are you?"
Yeah. And he basically tells her that the target that she's undercover to take down is out of bounds. And he kind of talks about how she's on an adrenaline hype after the mission.
Yes, it's established.
Tea and sugar to get rid of that or whatever.
Yeah, she is in MI5, but she's undercover with these people.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, and she's like, "Why did you bring a thermos?" And he's like, "Well, you never know when people haven't got tea bags," and it turns out she's got no tea bags. You're like, okay, that's interesting.
Although she doesn't believe any of this.
Yeah.
He does end up telling her about the time loop situation, chain reaction.
He basically was like, "Stop being undercover, that's all over." And she goes on this rant about how the guy she's working for is like a bad guy.
Yeah, connected to international
and he's like,
stuff.
That's really similar to what you said last time. Yeah. And it's like, oh, they've had this conversation before. Because we know it's all time loopy, we're like, yeah, okay, cool.
He says like, "Oh, for example, if I wanted to stop Princess Diana being killed, would I reroute it, or would I get someone to feed their cat earlier?" And it's
a butterfly effect.
Yeah, he despite the fact that most of the stuff we see them doing is like espionage stuff, if they can do it with something menial,
they might do lots of little things that isn't really shown.
Yeah, true. And he says something like, he's got a burrito, and he's like, "Oh, something like eating a burrito could change the world."
Yeah,
and that does come back later on.
But he's like, "We're the Lazarus Project.
Yes,
bitch, come join
us, bitch." We see a lot of there's a lot of people being recruited in this, isn't there? Like, not in this episode, but we've seen Shiv be recruited by Wes.
George
recruited by Archie. So it's like, I suppose that's in itself. That's the butterfly effect of,
It's like Star Wars in that, like, like Rey was taught by Luke, who was taught by Obi-Wan, who was taught by Qui-Gon, who was taught by Yoda.
Well, I wonder if we'll get like an early Lazarus thing with like someone else playing a young Wes.
Wes's backstory.
Yeah, no, we may well do. I mean, we've gone back further each time.
Like 19...
No, we haven't actually. Yeah,
Shiv started in 1981. 1975. And Wes is just...
And it's like...
graduate from Oxford.
Daisy Ridley plays Wes. Project alumni.
She is. But anyway, we're back to present day.
Yes.
And Archie, so Ryan, the IT guy, has just been killed by Red Broth, and Archie's going down to the cell.
Yeah. And she's like, "What the fuck's going on? Why is the IT guy going to see the prisoner?"
Yeah, she's like, "Restrain Red Broth.
It was weird that like that guard, the guard let the IT guy go see him.
But he had a card or a pass. They're just like mindless guards, aren't they?
Stupid guards. If you're a guard who listens, you're a fucking bitch.
Satire. But as she's on her way back up, she gets stopped by Wes, and Wes is like, "Why did this happen? Who's behind it?" And she's like, "I don't know."
She's also like, "Where's George? Where's Shiv?" And Archie's just like, "I don't know."
She's like, "You need to find out."
We don't know a lot, do we? Yeah.
And she tries to get into Ryan's computer, and she's like, "Can't get into the computer."
And the Dane's like, "It's Ryan's job. He knows the password."
Yeah.
But she doesn't just say, like, Ryan's dead.
Yeah.
I guess she's like, trying to be nice about it and not just like...
Yeah, she's like, "Where's the IT guy?" And the Dane's like, "Ryan's the only IT guy." And she's like, "I need to get in his computer. Get all the IT people here."
She says, like, we have a time machine. We must have more than one IT guy.
Yeah. And then eventually they're like, we'll get the other IT guys here. And then she's like, Ryan's dead. And the dame's like, oh.
Yeah, because there's like alarms going off and he's just like playing around with something.
And she's like, what do you think is going on? And then we go back to Romania for the first time this episode.
Yeah, and George is he's like, I think he's just finished texting Ryan to go kill himself.
Yeah,
basically.
and he's got Shiv in the boot of his car.
And he has like a little flashback / recap of killing Shiv.
Yeah, and his phone goes off.
And it's Archie.
So he doesn't answer. And then he gets in the car.
Well, he takes the phone. So he takes Shiv's phone and he starts like a data transfer because he's a software app engineer, so he knows bits and pieces. And he does that, and then he sets a Google Maps to the address of the bomb that he figured out last episode. Yeah. So we didn't say I didn't say. He's got a detonator for this bomb that's gone missing, like a nuclear bomb. And part of his plan is to set it off somewhere so that the Lazarus Project have to reset so that Sarah's still alive.
At any cost. So then you get Sarah back. But he gets in the car and starts driving towards the location.
Yeah, well, before that, his car won't start, which I feel like is supposed to be a bit of like a bad omen kind of thing. Because otherwise, no point in putting it in.
Yeah, I just thought it was like...
he's a bit useless.
Yeah.
Because there's quite a bit of that in this where it's like... you said last time, you're like, George is so shit compared to Shiv. Even though he gets the upper hand on him.
He does, but only...
It's kind of just...
A bit of luck.
Yeah.
And then just because he's got a gun at the end. We're back at Lazarus, and Wes is like, Ryan had a wife and a kid.
And he worked it for 5 years.
Yeah. And she's like...
Yeah, she says, like, you need to find out what happened. Or she says it to Red Rob.
She said it to Red Rob, and she's like, why did you kill him? And he's like, oh, he gave me a code that meant kill him. And she's like, what's this code? Who told him? And he was like, it must be the mole that you've got in Lazarus.
And they're all like, what the fuck? And he also jokes, he's like, is your code still ballerina? And Archie's like, no, we changed it because you knew what it was.
Yeah.
Because Red Rob is an ex-agent.
And Archie's like, we don't have a mole. And Red Rob's like, I'll tell you who the mole is if you give me some guarantees.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, God. And we, at this point, are like, right, because so George has been chatting with him to find out about the bomb and
Red Wolf doesn't really have any loyalties to George.
Not at all, no. So it's like he could very well just give George up. Yeah.
So we're then back with George driving through this Romanian village.
Yeah, and there's a horse just in the road.
Yeah, and he stops and there's a police car behind him that then just puts its sirens on.
Yeah.
Policeman comes over, starts talking Romanian. He can't speak Romanian. They can speak English, ask for his license. They're like, this car has been reported stolen. And he's like, is this your car? He's like, yeah. I mean, no, it's not. I borrowed it from a friend.
He's like, I think maybe someone saw me borrow it and they jumped to conclusions. And he like points to himself. He's like, is it because I'm black, basically?
Yeah. And they're like, what are you in Romania for? He's like, oh, business.
And they say, what business? He's like, my business.
Yeah.
And the whole time his transfer is like almost finishing of the data.
And then it like gets done and he gets a little notification. There's lots of things saying Blackbird.
Yeah, they're like bank transfers, encrypted payments.
And he remembers that Janet, Rebrov's wife,
who
he'd been working with, who built the detonator, had a necklace with a blackbird on it.
It's quite loose, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. This feels like some of the less thought out writing in the whole thing.
But the police are like, nah, we're having you, get out of the car. And he's like, and then drives off.
Yeah. At this point, did you kind of realize what is going on? Like, as in, that was Shiv's phone and he was sending money to someone.
Yeah.
Because he makes some claims later, which I think he uses them for his own, he twists the narrative a bit.
Yeah.
But I think the truth was that Shiv was supporting them.
Right.
Because otherwise, because we knew he felt guilty about the whole situation. And I think that that is true. Okay. Unless Blackbird is someone else and he's just made that up.
Yeah, no, I guess it could be. I guess it will come. The truth will come out.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, that's the in the moment thing that he kind of realizes anyway. Yeah.
So Archie's then talking to Wes, being like, "We can't make a deal. Like, this is Rebrov."
Yeah.
And Wes is like, "Yeah, we can." Like,
Yeah, Wes is just like a cold hard bitch, basically.
yeah, she's like, "We need to know who a mole is, otherwise we're just fucked."
Yeah, and then George calls Archie back after like a couple of missed calls.
And he's like, "Oh, I'm in Romania." She's like, "What the fuck are you doing in Romania?" He's like, "I'm pursuing a lead."
Yes, and the whole time he's being chased by police, and she's like, "Are you in a car chase?" He's like, "No."
But he's like, Shiv is in trouble. Like, I was with Shiv and he was drunk and he kept mentioning Blackbird.
Yeah, and he was like, "I'm in a situation that I can't get out of," kind of thing.
He ran a search and Blackbird was an encrypted payment to Janet.
Yes.
Can you get Ryan to look it up? And I was like, "Oh, fuck you, George."
It's so smart though, because it's being like, I don't know that Ryan's dead.
Yeah. And she's like, "Ryan's dead."
He's dead.
She's like, "What are you doing now?" And he's like, "I'm following Shiv."
Like, I'm definitely not in a car chase.
Yeah, Shiv's definitely not in my boot. I'm following Shiv.
I think she says, "Where's Shiv?" And he looks back and Shiv's like grey body is in his trunk. He's like started to decompose already.
But yeah, she's like, "Don't get too close. He's like a really good spy." Like,
yes, yeah. She says, "Don't engage with him," kind of thing.
So then Archie tells Wes that George is in Romania.
I think she says like, "Oh, no, she doesn't." Yeah.
And then Wes tells Archie
that she's already spoken to Rebrov. Yeah.
And Rebrov has told her that Shiv is the mole.
Yes.
So Rebrov's got George's back here, throwing them off the scent.
Pretty much, yeah.
And kind of accidentally reaffirming what George has already kind of fed to Archie.
Yeah, it's worked really well considering it wasn't.
They weren't in contact. It wasn't planned.
Yeah.
Archie's kind of in denial and doesn't believe that Shiv would turn his back on them.
And then we get like a flashback to Shiv and Archie's kind of past where it's back to Archie's recruitment time, isn't it?
A bit before that, Archie goes to see Rebrov.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And he's teasing her a bit, and he's
and Rebrov makes the point that like, "Oh, Shiv never got over what happened. Like the fact that he caused what happened to me and Jan here," which again is kind of putting bits of truth within the lie to make it believable.
They're both very clever, and it's a lot of what we were talking about last episode with this kind of Breaking Bad style, like
manipulation.
There's very clever manipulation, and it's kind of espionage-y type spy stuff that you don't really. I mean, I don't watch a lot of spy series, so this might be fairly common stuff, but in like a spy film, there's not enough time to have all these like it's more like almost like a Game of Thrones level of like political intrigue in a way. Do you know what I mean? I think
all people got their own angles and you don't quite know what all their angles are.
Exactly. Yeah, like even George having that moment shooting Shiv at the end of the last episode was like a big like
everyone's kind of got their own agenda. Even like Shiv and Archie aren't exactly on the same side.
Not at all, no. And it's and all this flashback stuff is, although it's a bit like another flashback, it's quite clever because it really well fleshes out the characters
and Shiv and Archie's relationship, particularly in this episode.
We have no idea.
We've never really seen them talk to each other.
No.
But it's like, actually, they're really quite close.
Yeah.
So we're back in 2014. And Archie's talking to Shiv because he's now kind of half recruited her.
Yeah.
And she's like, "So only some people are aware of these time jumps?" And Shiv kind of explains the stuff that we were explaining in episode 1.
Yeah. So is the drug that he mentions is just the treatment that they've all had if they're not the mutant?
Yes.
Because I thought it was like, you explain it. Yeah.
So you get some people like Shiv and George
Janet as well.
And Janet, who had a mutation, meaning they were aware of time loops. So sometimes develops later in some than others.
If it's 3 people in England born in the last like 40 years, 30 years together.
Yeah.
It's probably more common than we were kind of led to believe, but maybe people. Oh, but George is only like blossomed in that first episode, didn't it? Yeah.
But everyone else, like Archie, the Dane, Rebrov,
Yeah, as far as we know, like where's
I've basically
everyone?
been, and it's in the first episode, they got all these people from like the SAS and stuff.
Yeah,
They've
like
been
with Archie, how
they've
they've
been recruited for
recruited.
being
Yeah.
really good in the field and stuff.
Yeah.
And they get given this injection, I think it is.
Yes. Yeah.
That basically allows them to unlock the memories they had in wiped out timelines.
Yes. And we find out here that it would be for Archie, based on her age and how many things, it's about 8 years of additional memories.
Yeah, she's
quite a lot.
23, I think.
She's 23, and he works out like the and it's what we've done in previous episodes. We tried to figure out like how many extra years people have lived and stuff. And for her, it works. He's worked it out as about 8 years.
And then like he calls those memories coming back the wave.
Yeah, he says it's a sensory tsunami that's a mixture between lucid dreaming and if you took acid and had strong deja vu at the same time. Like, yeah, okay, you're really selling this, but she doesn't believe him at all.
She's still, he's like, you don't believe me, and she's like, nah.
I also thought in this part here, he was doing like, I didn't know if there was going to be some sort of like relationship, because he was doing like this kind of half spy, half like flirty voice. Do you know what I mean? I think it's just that this is like the confident, like, I was gonna say cocksure Shiv, but
no,
you know what I mean? Yeah,
the younger Shiv, like before he fucked up
before that,
Red Brother and Janet by accident,
and
like,
he's very self kind of sure, and yeah, he's very confident.
Yeah, I think,
but he's also in recruiter mode, which is Archie was like this for.
She was,
George,
yeah,
wasn't she? Yeah.
Maybe because he's a mutant as well. He's more just like, I guess if he doesn't know what's going to happen to her, he's just like,
he can say, it's fine. Like, it's actually really fun. I reckon you just put on a couple of King Gizzard albums.
We've already been through their favorite album. Can't remember what episode it was, so you have to go back and listen to all of them.
She does it in, what was it be, 2014, if it's 3 years after 2011.
Oh, so that's early.
That would have been, that would have been first few albums there.
Yeah. What?
Maybe Mind Fuzz?
Yeah.
I'm getting it up here because they formed in 2010. Yes, I was right. Yeah. So Eyes Like the Sky, Float Along for Your Lungs, Oddments, and I'm in Your Mind Fuzz of 2013 and 14.
Right, okay.
So she has some good choices.
Yeah.
I mean, she does leave a record on while she has her.
She does.
What was it called? A brainwave? No.
The Wave.
The Wave.
But before we see that, we're back with George.
Yes.
Who's still being chased by the police.
Yeah.
He does one of those classic getaway moves where he quickly goes around the corner and parks the car.
Yeah.
And the police comes around and turns the other way, and you're like, oh, he's learned.
Yeah.
But then he pulls out, goes around the corner, and the police go straight into the back of him.
And then the boot opens and Shiv's body is just like tied up in the boot.
The police car is just, the police was just like, what the fuck? And kind of aims his gun.
Not expect. They thought it was like a stolen car situation.
Yeah. And as he's like at the window, like shouting at George, he's like, okay, calm down, and then slams the door into the policeman. Takes a step back, and a lorry comes along and hits the policeman,
which is exactly what happened to Sarah, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's like, he's a bit of a hypocrite.
But he didn't. I don't think he knew that was going to happen because he seems pretty shocked.
Yeah, and then he's also, one of the flaws of being in the Lazarus Project is life.
Yes,
doesn't mean as much because his whole thing is to reset the thing. He's of the view that every person he kills is going to come back anyway, so it doesn't matter.
And it's only like the next part here. So the truck driver gets out and is like, hey, what the fuck happened? And George takes a moment. She's like, I've got to do this kind of thing. And he just like point blank shoots him.
Yeah, and then he's kind of like pissed at himself.
He is like, fuck, but he also does it still, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things, like a villain's origin story where they're still not quite... Like, it happens a lot in Breaking Bad where Walter White does stuff and then he's kind of like the bit where the drug dealers are going to kill Jesse and he turns up in the van and runs them over. Like, he just killed his people, but at the time he's like, fuck, did I just kill people? And then later when he's just like, I'll just kill whatever.
Yeah, he gets past it, doesn't he? Yeah, I imagine that is where we're going with this, really, isn't it? George is
Breaking Bad.
He's Breaking Bad, yeah.
It's funny that like for an American to break bad, they just need to not be able to pay for cancer treatment. In the UK, it's like, oh, you need to join a super secret organization and then have your fiance, wife, girlfriend killed and have the power to turn back time.
Yeah.
And that will make you break bad.
That's just this one guy, though, isn't it? I'm sure lots of people would do it if they were.
And still, I mean, Red Bull also broke bad,
there.
didn't he?
Yeah, and that was beyond
fucked up reasons.
Beyond fucked up reasons. Yeah, there's back to Lazarus, and one of the agents who we don't know is trying to like mansplain Schrodinger's cat to Archie, but he's calling it Pavlov's dog instead.
Yeah,
I
straight away when he was talking about it, I'm like, I'm sure he's talking about Schrodinger, not Pavlov.
I was getting a bit confused, and because Archie's clearly not really listening to him, because she's like, I think she's trying to search for something or like figure out what's going on. And the whole time, I don't think they've still got into Ryan's computer, so they don't know what. Yeah. They don't know anything about.
At this point as well, we see Ryan's body go past on like a stretcher,
and Archie's basically like, "I'm convinced that Shiv won't betray."
And us. I think a key thing that part of this scene is just that generally people in Lazarus don't believe that Shiv is bad. Like a couple of the others are like, no, like he's our friend. Like he wouldn't have done this.
Nobody's jumped on that kind of thing. But also, she is the one that's most kind of bothered about trying to prove he's innocent. Yeah. Everyone's a bit kind of ambivalent to everything, really. Like they're joking around, kind of like.
I guess they don't really know everything that's going on.
Yeah, and they don't have the same connection with him that she does, I imagine, as well. So,
but George in his car arrives at like a farm.
Yes.
And it's the address of the bomb, we think, or the IP address that he's heading to.
That's it. Yeah, and it looks like it's deserted, and he kind of like badly sneaks in, doesn't he? This is the bit I was thinking of.
He walks up the stairs and like creaks all the steps.
But even outside, he like walks up to the window and like stands there like looking in, and you can see there's like cups out and stuff, and he's like, right.
But he's walking around with his gun.
Yeah. And we see someone like coming up behind him.
Somebody calls him, and before he goes upstairs, he's like, "Oh, not now," and rejects it. But when he gets up the stairs, a guy comes from behind a door and puts a gun to the back of his head.
Yeah,
they fight for a bit. Do the punchy.
George like manages to smash him like through like a table. Or
something. They both fall quite hard, but this other guy takes the brunt of the hit.
Yeah, he gets hit in the head, and he kind of goes to pick up like what they called like a poker or something, like some sort of metal bar thing. But he's a bit like groggy, and George holds the gun on him, and then you can see that he's concussed, and he's like, "You feel that? You're concussed, mate."
And he kind of like stumbles back a bit dazed and falls down the stairs.
Yeah, I was like, well, George has killed someone else.
Yeah, and I was like, what's he gonna do now? He's killed like the contact.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, what the fuck was his plan? He just turned up to this place, like obviously not looking like part of a. I don't think they were Romanian, were they? I think they were Czech or something like that, maybe.
The Lost Glory.
And he's like, I'm just going to turn up like a black English guy, just like, I'm part of this Eastern European fringe group, like 100%.
Yeah. But the guy who wakes up and he's at a table, George pointing the gun, and he's like, I'm the guy that's here for the bomb. Like, you fell down the stairs, you concussed, but like, I'm here for the bomb. And right at this point, I had a sudden random thought.
Right.
So surely,
right,
they know George in Romania. Shiv went to Romania.
Yeah,
there'd be some way to see that George flew to Romania first.
Well, he flew on Sarah's card, so if they haven't done that digging yet.
But like, surely
they obviously haven't looked into it at all. Because Archie's probably the only one that knows he's there. Maybe Wes knows, but she's just like a big picture person.
Yeah, I was just thinking like that's gonna give George away like really easily if they figure that out. Because
but then if Shiv has like these encrypted bank accounts and stuff, maybe they've got no way of accessing his funding, so they might never be able to find that out.
Yeah, I guess. But then Archie saw him at Lazarus.
But didn't know that George was. Yeah, but I guess you could look at the timings.
And if George was already in Romania.
But it could be like, oh, I thought that Shiv was doing something dodgy there, so I flew there and he followed me. But yeah, you're right.
There's
well, I mean,
there's a thread there to pull.
But even for the whole Ryan thing, if they get into Ryan's phone or computer, they'll see some conversation, won't they?
Yeah.
And they'll even see the message from Shiv's. Oh, they'll see the message from Shiv's phone telling him to go talk to Rebrov.
Oh, yeah.
So that'll back up the story.
The previous ones, but they could be like Shiv's dead. George took his phone.
But the rest of it was like, oh, I'm chasing George.
Yeah, exactly.
But that could seem
not vice
like,
versa.
But it could seem like he's trying to get him off his tail.
Yeah. I feel for like most like plot points I haven't been able to predict throughout this series so far.
Which says quite a lot.
Credit to it,
yeah. Well, we're back with Archie, I think.
Yeah, back to 2014, and she's had the injection to get her memories back.
Oh yeah, the bit with the concussed guy waking up is later. Yeah, we ended with him falling down the stairs.
Oh yeah, we did. She gets a flash of memories.
Which is she puts a record on. It is 2014. Yeah.
And she gets all the different memories. There's a few blurs, but lots of different memories of that scene with Shiv in her living room.
Yeah, so she sees a couple of, and one of them is where the robbery happened, but the burrito truck was in the way.
Yeah.
And the lead robber, Cunningham, shoots the old man who runs the burrito shop.
And there's other one.
And she's like really upset about it. And then when Shiv tries to recruit her, she doesn't have any tea bags and she's just like not in a position to listen to him.
Yeah.
Hence both the burrito and the tea bag situation.
And we see how Shiv's tried different techniques. Like there's one where he's arrested Cunningham.
Yes.
And there's various different ways. And you clearly see how he's kind of built on this knowledge.
Yeah.
Which means, like, did they reset loads of times just to get Archie?
I think, well, the thing is, he said that if Cunningham got arrested or killed at the wrong time, it led to a chain of events that caused the end of the world. So that's why she was...
So
the recruiting was a side thing, really.
Okay.
But there was one time where she goes to the pub and arrests him.
Yeah.
And that causes her to get fired. And I think that was that first time still. But yeah.
Oh yeah, she arrests Cunningham. She eventually wakes up and Shiv's like, yeah, Cunningham's dead. And she's like, did you do that? And he was like, no, but you know, it's convenient.
Yeah, and there's a bit of a conversation where she's like, don't lie to me. And he's like, I didn't lie to you. And it's like, yeah, but you might. And he's like, yep, I might. And it kind of leaves it at that. And it's a bit like, I think that might be slightly after that actually. But it's kind of bolstering their relationship, but also sowing the seeds that maybe there is more to him than kind of she knows.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
kind of it's slightly putting the doubt in her, but also not kind of thing. But yeah, the concussed guy wakes up in Romania. And he's the caretaker. For some reason, he's got like a mostly English accent. He's like very slightly Eastern European, but I originally thought he was also like from Sheffield. And I was like, why are all these people who have got Russian name? We don't know what his name is, but he's the caretaker.
We do get told his name.
But I think
it's Rudy. Rudy is his name.
Did he say is he the guy who stole the bomb and he got the first half of the payment? That was the original.
I think the Lost Glory
paid him to hold on
to it so that it's not connected to them, and if they get caught, the bomb's still out there.
Yeah, because it was a little bit unclear in that kind of spy way, but for some reason what does he say? Like he's like, I didn't think you were Lost Glory.
Yeah, because Lost Glory are white supremacists.
Right, he does say that. Okay.
Yeah, and Jordan's like, oh, we've changed our mantra.
Yeah. I missed that part because I was trying to sort out my dinner and I was like, oh, I know that's something interesting, but
yeah, it's quite funny.
They're kind of negotiating, and so George is like, oh, we told you we'd give you the other half once you show us the bomb. And the guy's like, yeah, you did say that. And it's like, this guy clearly knows that George was bullshitting, right?
Yeah, but I think he just doesn't really care.
He doesn't care, but it also feels like it felt like it was leading up to a betrayal. And it may well be in the longer run, but George has got a gun and this guy doesn't have a gun. So it's kind of like...
Yeah, but so Rudy wants to see the detonator and George wants to see the bomb.
Yes.
And George is like, take me to the bomb.
Yeah.
And Rudy's like, we need to trust each other if we're going to do this. Like, we've got a detonator and a nuke. Let's trust each other. And George's like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And
this, we get an Archie little quick bit where she
breaks into Shiv's flat.
Yeah, and this is where we get a flashback to after her wave.
Before that, though, she's having a look around. She opens his fridge. Did you see what was inside his fridge?
No.
There was a 2-pint bottle of milk.
Right.
An 8-pack of bottles of water. And a glass of milk.
Just a glass of milk.
A glass of milk. And that's what his fridge was. And I was like, that's weird.
Yeah, also, he gives across, like, drinking alone vibes.
He does.
But maybe he likes White Russians. And
maybe it's a White Russian.
Maybe the vodka's not in his fridge.
Yeah. But she does see...
Yeah, actually, Shiv does give me White Russian vibe.
Yeah.
He gives me... he watched The Big Lebowski and got really into White Russians.
Oh, I do like a White Russian.
White Russians are good.
Yeah.
Mostly, yeah.
I made some really good White Russians at New Year's.
You made some White Russians.
I know, they were great.
It was like a pint glass half filled with vodka.
No, it was a quarter vodka, a quarter Kahlua, and half milk.
I just remember getting one that like slightly looked like it was curdled, and I was just like, I'll drink it, but it doesn't. It doesn't look. I'm sure it was the worst of the bunch.
Yeah, the one I think the couple I had were good, and your sister enjoyed the couple I made.
Oh right,
well.
There we go. You do have to bring it back to.
But anyway, one other significant thing Archie finds in Shiv's flat: photos of him and his family, but also a picture of him, Janet, and Rebrov, and they're all like close, and she's like. I
couldn't tell who that was because it was quite dark and I had a reflection on my TV. Also, the scene later where George goes into a very dark place, I was like, I can't really see what's happening. And then they turn the lights on.
Yeah. But yeah, so she's like, oh shit, like.
And no pictures of him and Archie.
No, there might have been other. There was actually one framed next to his bed. She
didn't signed. Love you from Shiv. I'll give you this next year.
Yeah, back to 2014, as you said.
There's also a signed copy of Murder of the Universe.
Yeah,
Murder of the Universe. What's it called? Murder of the Universe.
It is Murder of the Universe. Yeah. 2014, Arch says the wave was enlightening.
Yes, she brings him a burrito as a symbolic burrito of whatever.
And Shiv says he didn't kill Cunningham, but, you know, he's dead, and that's for the best.
Yes. And this I realised, because we talked last episode about we weren't sure how old he was, and I'm sure we kind of figured it out based on when he was born, but in this, I kind of realised, oh yeah, he is a bit older than he seemed. We thought he was like 30 at first, but he's clearly
like
kind of
41,
closer to 40. Yeah.
He was born in 81.
He looks a bit greyer than I first realised.
Yeah.
He's got more of, like, especially in this mentor role that we see him in,
you
see him more like, I think it's because he seemed a bit like a teenager in that first
episode.
So
like emo.
Yeah, and he was just like, and he looked like fucking one of, what was it? What was that band I said he looked like?
Who was it? Was it The Horrors?
The Horrors, yeah.
Yeah.
He looked like The Horrors. He still does, but.
But yeah, we get a little bit where the archives are figuring something out.
The Horrors look so funny.
But then we get finally George and Rudy get to like a barn.
Yeah, so there's a bit of like an intense like, ooh.
And they go in.
Oh, did you say that Archie texted him? Archie texts Shiv saying, "Tell me you're not the mole."
Yeah, she's figuring stuff out.
Yeah, and he doesn't reply because he's dead, and also George has his phone.
Yeah,
which I guess he might have like ditched now. We don't really know, but yeah, there's a dramatic pull up to the barn.
Yeah, they go in. It's all dark. Rudy turns on the light, and there's just a huge bomb on the back of a lorry.
Yeah, so it's literally like it's been transported. It's got the big like Russian truck with it still.
Yeah, and it is like 20 foot long and like 8 foot tall.
And he's like, "That's a big bomb," and he reacts in the way that someone who isn't part of a terrorist organization.
Yeah, he's like, it's like in the movies.
And this is when I thought he was going to betray him. This guy's like, yep, it's a big bomb. Yep.
Yeah.
It's called Big Boy, literally.
Yeah.
So.
George was like, I want to blow this up tonight. And Rudy's like, well, there's no point doing it here. You're just going to kill some like cows and
Yeah,
shit.
which is exactly what we said last episode. Yeah.
And he asked Rudy to help him transfer it across the border.
Yeah, where does he say?
I don't know.
I thought he said Lithuania, but I think he says a city.
Yeah.
Maybe it's some city that sounds a little bit like
it must border Romania, so it could be a few different options.
But they talk about the blast radius and how far they
maybe
can go.
Ljubljana.
Yes, that's what he says. Yeah,
it's the capital of Slovenia.
Maybe, yeah, that would make sense.
So a capital city is probably a good target.
Yes, it's a very quick conversation, and
and
the guy is just like, I will help you, and he doesn't ask for the money, like the agreement, which makes me think that he is still going to try and fuck him over.
Yeah, but they get in the truck and they start driving off. They put a cover over the bomb.
Yep.
Which I was hoping they would.
Instead, it looks just like a giant rocket. This is my giant firework.
Yeah.
It's Slovenian Independence Day tomorrow.
Okay, let's go. And they drive off.
Is that your Slovenian accent?
No, I'm pretty sure one of them said, okay, let's go. And as they drive off, there's a lingering shot of the farm.
And the boot, I think it zooms in on the boot at one point. No, that's when they're approaching. Don't worry.
And then it kind of in the background we see some car lights go on.
Oh right, okay, I missed that. So the Lost Glory have turned up.
It might not be the Lost Glory. We don't know who it is.
Archie, it's Shiv.
Could be Archie. Could be Janet. It could be all sorts. It could be a character that hasn't been introduced yet. Maybe old Brian Gleason's back. Maybe it's the Dane.
I was thinking we had a little bit of the Dane this time. We also had a little bit of the Schrodinger's dog guy.
Yeah.
So I reckon we will get some.
Maybe it's Ryan's wife coming to get revenge
with the baby in the back with a machine gun. They start them young.
I guess we'll find out next episode.
Yeah.
What's going on there? But that brings us to the end of episode 5.
It does.
Of the Lazarus Project. A bit of a middle episode.
Yeah, it definitely felt like filler, but not in a like dragging its feet way.
No, it was a bridge from exciting stuff before to the exciting finale.
The kind of bridge that might be exploded by a nuclear bomb, you know?
Yeah.
Like a very important one, but one that may look very small in hindsight.
After your excellent prediction about there being a Shiv cold open last time round.
Did you predict an Archie cold open this time?
Oh, do you know what? There's like 2 countries between Romania and Slovenia. Well, Croatia and Serbia. But
he did just say across the border, didn't he?
Yeah.
It did sound like Ljubljana.
Ljubljana,
yeah.
Maybe they're going to.
What Ukraine. Are you going to predict where they're going?
I was going to see if
maybe they're going to Denmark and the Dane is going to have his play. I know that's not bordering, but still.
No, I was going to see if there's a notable bridge in Ljubljana, which is all. No, it looks pretty. Oh, actually,
is there a big bridge?
Is a river with a few bridges over it, so you never know. And the center of town is centered around this river, so it might be a good place.
Oh, there's something called the Dragon Bridge in Ljubljana.
Yeah, so maybe that's where.
It looks like quite a small bridge, but it looks very beautiful.
Oh yeah, Ljubljana looks like a lovely city. I hope they don't set off a nuke there. Also, I feel like Slovenia would be a weird target. Like, surely you'd want to do like Moscow or something. Or do you know what? In the current climate, you know what would really set off World War III? Kiev, which is over the border from Romania.
Yeah, where? I'm sure you're looking the same as me, but
it began with L. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, was it?
Maybe Lviv.
Yeah,
Lviv is where they've been doing lots of stuff. I think that's where Boris Johnson met Zelensky.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like doing a nuclear bomb in Ukraine would be a little bit distasteful.
Could you imagine?
Maybe it was meant to be that, and they've just changed it to Ljubljana. Maybe they dubbed over.
But anyway, I guess we will find out.
Any predictions though? Speaking of that, for next week. Or next episode, we'll probably have a one-off in between. But do you think he's gonna blow it? Do you think he's gonna blow it next week?
I reckon Archie will try and persuade him otherwise.
I think.
I don't think I think he's got his mind like straightforward.
I reckon if they blow it, it will be the episode after with 2 to go rather than with 3 to no, actually maybe with just 1 to go then. Yeah, weird. Okay.
Yeah, I reckon the bomb goes off either the next episode or the one after.
Yeah, it won't go off in the last episode. If it does, it's just a bit disappointing. We need a whole episode to kind of rejig it. But yeah, generally speaking, like we said, yeah, not exactly a filler, but like just not quite up to the standard of some of the episodes we've seen, I would say. So do you know what kind of rating you're thinking of?
So we gave the last one an 8 and the one before an 8, which I think was fair.
Yeah.
I think there was still some interesting stuff.
Yeah. Some of the backstory wasn't completely it wasn't completely original from stuff we've seen in this series.
Yeah, and seeing Shiv figure out the best way to recruit Archie was quite fun if it didn't last so long.
But again, it's kind of repeating stuff that we've seen before. But you know, it fleshed them out a bit.
I'm gonna give this episode a 6.
Yes, I'm gonna give it a 6 as well.
We agree a lot these days. Have you noticed?
On this series, not on everything.
We agreed with Moonbase last week.
Yes, but Moonbase was unequivocally not a good film.
What was the last?
It was a good episode, though. I almost finished listening to that.
Yeah, I was listening today, and I was like, it was quite fun to listen back to. Yeah. In a completely non-biased point of view. But yeah, I think it's the 6. I think Archie's going to catch up with George at some point. She has to,
because she is the kind of emotional linchpin of his Lazarus situation.
I think Wes will be like, kill him.
Yeah.
Just kill him.
Well, that's the thing, because she's fully on board with the project, and she didn't save her boyfriend Brian Gleason because she's got this fixed mantra. So her breaking that, not necessarily to go bad, but to break bad. She broke it to break bad. That'll be an interesting thing for her to be put on the spot, because she's responsible for a lot of this happening in a way. Because she recruited George without really giving him the full kind of time of day.
And didn't really support him properly.
No.
After his girlfriend
she stayed with him for like 1 day and then was like, okay, you can go back to work.
And then
even
just
though
went and tortured Rebrov.
Beat him up a bit.
I hope Rebrov gets more play, because like his episode was interesting and fun.
Yeah, he needs to get freed. Really,
I think he's a bit wasted in captivity,
because he was like almost out at the end of that episode, but he ended up. The last episode, he ended up getting.
Well, we know that he's given Wes the name of Shiv,
so that might be his deal. Do you think?
Yeah, maybe
she
can't just release him, can she?
But she could just. He doesn't trust her either. He's doing it for like mischief, isn't he?
Yeah, shits and giggles. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So we will power through those last 3.
We'll do something else
at the end of September.
Yeah, we'll do a couple of bumper back-to-backs, won't we?
Yeah, just because I feel like once we get into that final run, it'll be hard not to revisit
definitely. We'll definitely do a double feature, as in 2 weeks in a row. We'll see about that last one. See how well that flows into the last 2, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think we might have to.
Yeah.
With our upcoming plans. But yeah, that means it is now time for everybody's favorite segment, Personal Projects.
And this time, it's personal.
Projects.
So that was another great little jingle you put in there, Sam.
Yeah, little does everyone know I've been reusing them for the last few weeks.
Have you actually?
I've done like 2 where I haven't had time to make them, so I've just reused them. Or have I? You'll have to listen back and find out.
So we mentioned a couple of things we've been doing. Do you want to go ahead and kick us off?
If we both start with the films that we've watched that the other person's watched, I suppose. So
yeah,
I watched Death on the Nile.
Yeah.
I watched it on the Sunday after the aforementioned barbecue.
Yeah, great. I think that's when I watched the one I'm going to talk about as well.
It was a good hungover film, but I don't think it was a good film. I didn't really enjoy it that much, to be honest.
I think it's not as good as the Orient Express.
Yeah, Murder on the Orient Express. Yeah,
I still thought it was quite fun.
It was
the
quite
twist
fun.
And the acting's good.
I didn't really. I said I didn't know where it was going. I didn't know. It takes quite a while to get to the murder, which is kind of interesting. It's halfway through, and there's a lot of setup and stuff, which was quite refreshing. But I did pause it and say to Amy, "I know what's happened. I'm going to say it now and just see it." And I was right. I was right with the whole thing with the couple, and they planned it, and it was for the money and stuff. So spoilers for that film, but you don't know. That could be anyone, really, couldn't it? But we're pretty much doing spoilers. But the actual ins and outs of it was still pretty
and
interesting.
the acting's good again.
Yeah,
I
think Poirot, Kevin.
You're going to say Kevin Costner?
I was going to say Kevin Conroy, but that's the Batman animated.
Batman.
Kenneth Branagh.
Kenneth Branagh.
That's what threw me. I said Kevin. I think he's really good, and he's quite emotional in this one. And
it's a bit more of a personal story to him. Yeah,
especially as things go with his friend Book, and he gets really involved in it. And there's the double mission that he's on and all that. I think, I thought it was okay, but I think it wasn't. I didn't think it was like a great film, you know.
Yeah, no. Fair
also,
enough.
It's funny that we get the origin of his mustache in the first scene. I was like, oh, this guy must be Poirot. Oh no, then there's young Kevin Branagh.
Because this was gonna have a cinema release and then kind of got screwed over and then was put in Disney Plus, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I kind of still hope for a third.
I think last we saw, you said it was the Italian Man in Naples or something.
Oh yeah.
I know the name that we looked up of the book that we thought it was going to be based on was like the Italian Man in Naples goes on I was like the Adventure of the Baron in Naples.
Yeah.
And I think we guessed mine was like the Killing at the Canals or something like that.
Yeah. But yeah, hopefully they do one. Kenneth Branagh seems to be quite.
Although he does, spoiler alert, shave his moustache off at the end. So, and supposedly he's kind of maybe fallen in love with the singer at the end because he's done.
You can always bring him back.
Yeah.
I remember. I think it said last time. It's funny how everyone does a different accent to the natural one, except Gal Gadot, who can only do her accent.
Yes, her kind of.
I don't think she's terrible in this. She's just Gal Gadot.
There's a scene that, like a clip that I'd seen of her that was supposed to be like, this is how bad she is. It was when they're first on there and she's like, and enough champagne to fill the Nile. And she like throws it in there. And it feels a little bit like something you'd see on like an advert for like a holiday thing or something. Like it's not a great, like, you know, she's always a little bit kind of cheesy, but it kind of works for the character she plays in this.
Yeah. But yeah, cool.
Yeah, but I thought it was okay. Yeah, but and you watched something that I've seen before as well.
I started watching something else first. So me and Christina were flicking through Disney Plus. I started watching Mary Poppins Returns.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I got about an hour in and turned it off. Christina had fallen asleep because it was the Sunday after your barbecue.
Right. Yeah.
And she was asleep, and I was like, "This is absolutely shit."
I've seen a bit. I think round Christmas at Amy's family, we watched a bit. I think we watched all of it, and I was kind of dipping in and out.
It is so bad, and
I don't remember it.
Lin-Manuel Miranda does his stuff, and
he's
it's just not.
It was peak him, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it was just after his peak, maybe.
But he's trying to do like a Dick Van Dyke thing, and it's just like, it's just not entertaining.
I just remember there's a lot of stuff with like a kite in a park.
Yeah,
that felt like a lot of this film.
So I was getting bored of it. I saw how much was left, and it was like an hour, and I was like, I can't sit for another hour.
Like,
of this.
In an hour, I can practically watch the whole of New Mutants.
So I turned it off. And me and Christina watched the New Mutants.
Yes. Or the old Mutants.
Yeah.
If the schedule has anything to do with it.
It's an interesting film.
Yeah.
I think for lots of it couldn't decide whether it wanted to be like a teen drama or a horror film.
Yes.
And it'd have like a horror scene and then a teen scene. They weren't like mixed. It was...
you can tell it was reworked.
It very much felt unfinished. And obviously there was lots of planned reshoots that never happened, and then it was dumped on Disney Plus.
Yeah, it was a case of re-editing rather than actually reworking it, I think.
And it just there's a good film in there somewhere.
Yeah, that's what I mean. This is why I was conflicted. It wasn't all bad, I didn't think anyway.
No, but it wasn't good.
No.
And I think partly Anya Taylor-Joy is so much better than everyone else in that film.
Yeah.
And I think it's partly because she's quite good and partly because everyone else is terrible.
Yeah, and her plot, although it doesn't really explore it, where she's got like this horrible traumatic experience with like Russian gangsters and stuff, and it's like it forms in this like Slender Man style like figures. Like there's something to that, but it's just
and like the horror elements with like the smiley faces. Were good.
Even like the bear thing at the start that kind of comes through.
And the priest was like scary with Maisie Williams.
Right? Yes. Yeah. But she's got like this terrible like Scottish accent.
Charlie Heaton's accent is awful.
But is he not just like playing pretty much the same as Jonathan?
He's playing Jonathan, but with like a really bad like Southern States American accent, and it's inconsistent as well. It comes and goes. You're just like,
I think there may have been some reshoots, but not like to the extent they wanted.
And I think the director wanted it to be a different.
I think
film.
it was supposed to. I think it was supposed to follow on from in Logan the samples of X-Men of mutant DNA are taken by Essex Corporation, and I think that's supposed to be where this is led.
We get some flashes in this of clips that are used in Logan of Essex Corporation.
The bits with the young mutants. But the
Uh,
fact that this was supposed to lead into like a new team is that none of that is there at all. I think that's a case of Disney being like, we don't want to set things up that aren't going to go through. So it just doesn't go anywhere.
It started being made before the Disney takeover of Fox, and by the time it was finished, Disney had taken over, and they were essentially cancelling the X-Men franchise.
I think it was filmed in like 2016. And it came out in 2020. Something like that. So it was like
it's
4 years.
It's also funny because it's when Stranger Things is first kicking off. Game of Thrones is at its peak, and it's like, they get in people who were popular in 2016.
It's kind of a wonder that those two don't look too different from how they do now.
Well, I saw one thing about when they were considering reshoots, the director said it got to a point where the actors had clearly aged.
Oh, really? Okay,
so it just wasn't feasible eventually.
Yeah, fair. And the thing is as well, for Anya Taylor-Joy, she was fairly big, but she hadn't had things like Queen's Gambit and stuff. So
she's become bigger since.
She's become the biggest star out of a lot of them.
When at the time it was Maisie Williams. I remember when it was first announced, it was like, oh, Maisie Williams in the X-Men.
The character that Anya Taylor-Joy plays is supposed to be Colossus's sister.
Yeah,
so it was
Rasputin.
all like, Ileana, I think it is. Rasputin, but I thought it was an okay watch, and it's like I'm glad I watched it.
I said to Christine, it's like you quite often read like on IMDb about it went to a test audience and they made these changes, and like sometimes you're like, I wonder what it's like to see a film before they made changes after the test audience, and this is it. This is that film before they made the changes.
This is the in between kind of we've got to remove certain teasers, but we're not going to add anything. It's like. How long is it? It's like an hour and 20 minutes or something like that. It's incredibly short for what it is.
But so I watched that. What else were you?
Well, I'll talk about it a bit more when I finished it, but I've watched the first 3 or 4 episodes of The Sandman.
Oh, yeah. And, so you said you read the first book?
I read the first volume, and I was partway through the second volume, and then Amy was like, oh, should we watch it? And I was like, yeah, I really want to watch it. So
what was it on Amazon?
It's on Netflix. And like budget wise, it's up there with things like Stranger Things, maybe higher budget than that even. Like it looks really good, and it's this really interesting fantasy world. And so far it kind of follows the plot of because I said last time that it's kind of almost individual stories with stuff linking them. They've done a much better job with this of making it continuous, and certain plots are brought back and fed throughout and stuff. And it's living up to expectations for me. So I'm going to carry on watching it. And that's the reason why I haven't watched the thing that you were going to talk about next. But I will finish it off, and I would really recommend getting on it at some point. I think you'd really like it.
I know, because a couple of things we're going to talk about have started recently. Rings of Power starts soon.
Yes.
Andor starts next month.
Yeah.
Still haven't finished Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with the Netflix ones is because they drop all at once, it's kind of like, with all those ones you mentioned, apart from Umbrella Academy, they're all weekly. So it's kind of a case you can kind of fit stuff in.
Also, I completely missed that season 4 of Westworld started and finished.
I
didn't even notice.
I watched half of it, and the episode before where I'm at now, I was like, where's this going? They do the interesting thing where they go, and here, this is a bit of a spoiler, but they're like, oh, and there's a new park, and you're like, wow, and they do something different with the park, and they do the thing where it's like, oh, they're reusing certain storylines, you know, like, I recognize that bank, they do the bank robbery bit, you know, all that, but in a different setting, and you're like, cool. And then they do something at the end where you're like, okay, this is an interesting twist. The next episode was absolute bullshit. Like, fucking, what's she called? Tessa Thompson. She was hamming it up. They were doing all these weird, like, monologues where about gods, and it feels like Westworld, but it is done by different people. And it's just,
yeah, the fact that I haven't even heard anyone talk about when season 1 was out, it was massive. And everyone was talking about Westworld. And
it's something like 10 episodes or 9, and there's been no impact.
The fact that I didn't even notice season 4 was coming out until after it finished says everything.
I will finish it at some point, and I'll let you know if it's worth. Did you watch up to that? Then you watched 3.
I watched 3, with, 3, which is like in the real world.
Aaron Paul, it follows a lot of that stuff, but with a little bit more of what you're expecting, but. It's just very silly. It's just very, very silly. But
what I did watch was House of the Dragon. As you know, I've been quite looking forward to it. And I have to say, it was really, really good. Like,
nice.
I was like, at the end, I was like, fuck yeah. It's like peak Game of Thrones. Like, you've got the murder, the sex, the politics.
Is it
like,
kind of
dragons.
straight in where you want it to be kind of thing? Like, not as in like, in the middle of a thing, but
but
it doesn't mess around.
One
too
episode,
much.
So much has happened.
Okay,
all like kind of the pieces have been set. You're like, oh shit.
Does it kind of fall with where you were thinking story wise and stuff?
Yeah, so they've adapted a couple of things, like, so it's like characters' ages, and it's set like a few years later than the source material says.
Right.
A couple of characters are closer in age.
Is there different time things going on?
Yeah, so about halfway through this, not different time things.
There's something to do with like different age characters or something. I don't know. I read something that I read a headline, but
so a couple of characters have been aged up and others aged down to make them similar ages,
so that they can have relationships. And it's not as weird.
But they're also about halfway through the season. There's going to be a time jump of like 10 years or something.
Right.
So
that might be what I was thinking.
Get to like the rest of the plot essentially.
Okay.
But it's really good. The acting's really good. Like, and it's quite cool to see because it's clearly in the Westeros we see Game of Thrones, but you can tell it's like the peak of the Targaryen dynasty.
Okay, so the aesthetic is different, but it's the same.
And there's like a tournament, like a jousting thing, which you get in the first episode of Game of Thrones. And it's just like bigger and nicer because this is before the kingdom fell to shit, and it's like, oh yeah, this is really
more like
cool.
affluent and like lavish. And
okay. There's one scene in it that is like horrific and was like hard to watch.
Oh god.
And I was like, it might be worse than anything. Like, on par with anything I saw in Game of Thrones. I was just like, fuck, this is horrible.
I think I'll watch it tomorrow evening.
Yeah, it is really good. Everyone's like, Matt Smith is really.
I was going to ask because I haven't really watched him I know he's in Morbius, which I still haven't seen.
No.
But I've heard in Morbius he's kind of just a bit hammy and just like silly.
No.
I think there's a dance scene with him where he's dancing on his own. I think he's just like, he's the bad guy. He's like powered up and he's like, you know, he does like a cocky villain dance.
Yeah.
And I saw like a slight gif of it and I was like, no, I feel like I'll watch that when I get round to it.
Yeah, it's got a really good feeling of like who the character is in this. And you're like, you're like,
Because you said he's kind of like he's awful, but you kind of get behind him.
Yeah,
based
no, there's
on-
bits where
yeah.
like, oh, he's a bit of a shit guy, but like he's not wrong.
Is
kind
he
of thing.
kind of the central character in a lot? I know there's probably multiple.
He
like,
is one of the central characters. A lot of it
Yeah.
is based around Paddy Considine, who plays King Viserys,
right,
who's also very good.
and he's his older brother,
He's
Matt Smith's
his younger brother.
younger. Yeah, Matt Smith's younger one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a lot centered around as well King Viserys' daughter Rhaenyra,
And the brothers, without spoiling it, I imagine are going to be two of the dragons that have a dance together.
potentially.
Okay.
I won't say anything, but yeah, it's really well acted. It's
Cool.
like the settings and stuff is just like it looks
Does it
great.
look like peak Game of Thrones?
Yeah,
like, good
and
shit.
it's
like-
got the dragons in, obviously bigger than the Game of Thrones dragons because they're older.
Yeah, because they like
and you're like, oh,
spread
fuck,
out.
yeah,
and
this
stuff.
is this is exactly how I felt watching
oh, cool.
early Game of
okay,
Thrones.
yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
very much looking forward to the
Compared
rest
to
of the
you,
season.
I've kind of been a bit head in the clouds with this and not really paid attention to the lead
Yeah.
up. So
I've been
Yeah.
seeing quite a few TikToks of people being like, "Oh, season 8 Game of Thrones is so bad. I can't be bothered to watch anything else. I'm just so like done with this." And then and like, "Oh yeah, I'm back. I'm back."
yeah.
And I very much feel like that. As
Yeah.
somebody was very disappointed with how
I mean,
Game of
I was
Thrones
full on
ended.
board for like almost all of Game of Thrones. I never
Yeah.
really like in the same way everyone got a bit disenfranchised with it, but I watched regularly until the end. Like I didn't,
Yeah.
so I think I'll fall back into it pretty easy. I mean,
Yeah.
I watched half a season of Westworld that no one cared about, so,
Yeah.
and I watched all of Riverdale, so I'm a bit of
Yeah.
a sucker for these.
But
things.
yeah, I do watch it because I look forward
Nice.
to having a good old chat about
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I'll try and watch it. I'm sure I'll watch it before
They've
next time.
there's a couple of things. So like they've redesigned a couple of things.
Okay.
I think there is some like, so it opens with like 172 years before Daenerys Targaryen. Like they're very
Okay.
much set up as,
a prequel,
and there's
to
a
it.
couple of scenes where it's like, oh, okay.
So it's got a bit of like,
But there's also a
Fan
couple of
service
changes. Like the Iron Throne is there, but they've adapted it a bit. So like all the stairs leading up to the Iron Throne are covered in swords as well.
so it's more like because in the source material, it's more of a
It's
grand,
huge, yeah. And
crazy
it's meant to
thing,
be like
isn't it?
1,000 swords.
Yeah, yeah,
So they've kind of been like, oh yeah, we'll stick them in
yeah.
here.
So it's just like forget that, kind of like any prequel does. You know,
Yeah.
they mess around very.
I think
slightly.
like one thing that is different to Game of Thrones is it's not jumping around Westeros as much.
right, okay.
Because Game of Thrones has so many storylines like King's Landing, Winterfell,
yeah.
The Wall.
yeah.
This is all King's Landing. 'cause
okay,
it's-
interesting.
Because it's the Targaryens, their family.
I suppose it may well move slightly as it goes.
Yeah, but this
'Cause
first
even-
episode, you don't leave King's Landing at all.
Even the first episode of Game of Thrones, the furthest afield you go is Daenerys across the sea.
Yeah.
Isn't it? But most of it is round kind of the north.
It's just
And-
Winterfell and a bit of King's Landing, I guess.
Yeah, there's John Aaron's body. Is it John
Yeah,
Aaron?
yeah.
That's not in. That's the whatever the Moon Door place, isn't it?
But you know, he dies in
He
King's
dies
Landing.
in King's Landing. Yeah. Was he the Hand of the King?
He was Hand of the King, yeah.
okay. See, I know my shit.
Yeah, it's very good. Highly recommend it,
Nice,
and
yeah.
I'll be watching that
I
every Monday
think-
for the next 10 weeks.
I think, yeah. So potentially, when we next record, we could have both watched episode 2, so we can try and do
Hopefully, yeah.
a weekly thing with that. But we will be inevitably a week behind most
Yeah.
releases, just because we release on a Monday.
Well, the episode comes out on a Monday.
It comes out on Sunday in the US, though.
Yeah,
so we'll
but
be.
for-
But it is what it is. If people really want to listen to us talk about it, they'll wait a week and listen to it. Then.
Or they can, listen to our thoughts. But yeah,
yeah, that's what I mean.
I'm intrigued about the. Obviously, I know the basic plot threads. I'm just
Yeah.
quite intrigued. There's one key line because it's based on like a history book.
yeah.
There's one thing that's kind of said and it's kind of open to interpretation.
Okay.
And this portrays that bit really well. Of like you're still not quite sure how it's meant to be shown, but
Okay.
people have interpreted it different. It's very good.
Okay, cool. I'll probably won't notice that, so you have to tell me about that next
Yeah.
week.
Um,
Yeah.
but then the last thing to talk
Mhm.
about is Mrs. Hulk.
Mrs. Hulk.
Yeah.
The first episode.
I think we briefly spoke about it on Saturday.
Yes, we did very briefly, and you probably had a skinful of liquor. It's a weird way of saying it. It's like a Game of Thrones thing, you know?
Sure. What did you think?
Skinful of gamma radiation. I enjoyed it. It was pretty much what I expected. It, apart from it spending like almost the whole thing as like a flashback and filling out the backstory.
Yeah, I did kind of get to the end. Like, I guess they had to start it with the build up, and
I'm kind of glad they did that first in a way.
And now we can see the actual story.
I'm glad we got like a little bit of her in the present day at the end, and like doing a bit of Hulk stuff and being like, okay, everyone knows now because I did it in public.
Yeah,
I liked it, and I think all the relationship with her and her cousin Bruce were like really well done, and they've got good chemistry. I wonder how much he'll show up, maybe once more in the last episode. Maybe he'll pop in throughout every other episode.
Yeah, he probably won't be in heavy.
I've got a feeling it's going to be like a different cameo every week kind of thing. I say cameo, but like,
yeah,
I've heard, well, we've spoken bits about certain leaks and trailer stuff. I'm thinking, it will be different people throughout, but I think it's supposed to be mostly like a legal drama with action, so I think there will be different cases.
First episode didn't have too much of the legal drama.
I think she even says, because she breaks the fourth wall is the other thing. And that is something that predated Deadpool in the comics.
I was having this conversation with someone at work. It was like, oh, they did the fourth wall break. Like, I'm kind of a bit tired of fourth wall break at this point because loads of people have been doing it, and I was like, yeah, but She-Hulk were like did it first, so like her character was always going to have to be, if she didn't break the fourth wall, people would be like, what the fuck, this isn't She-Hulk.
Yeah, I mean, what would be interesting, it's funny because there was actually a Fleabag-ish moment where she looks at the camera and Bruce like catches her. But I'm sure that whenever Deadpool finally gets involved, when they have their first meeting, there'll be some discussion of that. And he'll probably say, oh, I was doing it for 2 films before she did it. And she'll be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But what did you think generally?
I enjoyed it. I like the whole bit of them at their little retreat and like her training.
It kind of fills in the blip stuff with him and Tony Stark without having to get Robert Downey Jr. involved.
I liked as well where he had like a whole book of like, here's how it's be 15 years. But it just hasn't affected her as bad.
No, and it's also a bit like she's a different person. She's a woman, so she deals with things in slightly different ways.
It's like what, you haven't got the other person? She's like, no, it's just me.
Yeah. I thought it was funny, like the design didn't really throw me off too much, but I was watching it with Amy and she was like, she just looks like a giant like porn star. And I was like, and I got pictures up of She-Hulk on my phone. I was like, to be fair, they've done a pretty good job with what they have.
Like I think we said that it's the old trope of like a male alien's a big ugly monster, a female alien's just a blue
or like
sexy woman.
Any like orc or
But like for this, the source material is that the Hulk's a big monster and She-Hulk's a tall
and the thing
green
is as well,
woman.
compared to Tatiana Maslany, the actress, she is an incredibly small person. So the fact that she's this much bigger, she's like a good 2.5 foot bigger, like and then wider proportionally. Like it kind of it doesn't really fully make sense, but it's like the long flowing hair and stuff, and like she's got bigger boobs and everything. Like it is silly, but also like the Hulk looks silly compared to Mark Ruffalo in a lot of ways. So I'm not fully defending it, but also I'm
happy to kind of go along with it. I've seen some people criticize the CGI.
Yeah, like, I don't really.
In moments, I noticed it when she was like jumping or running.
Yeah, the motion stuff.
Yeah. And it's hard to CGI like hair in motion.
Yeah.
But overall, I was like, it's fine.
I feel like, especially I know they've probably got like the model of Bruce Banner Hulk, the smart Hulk. Yeah. But he, I think, looked like flawless throughout. Like there was some
he looked really
like
good.
Sunshine on him and stuff. And I think partly with her because he's got this kind of caveman proportions and he inherently looks more like Shrek or like a thing. Whereas she has the same face but on like a bigger body.
It's easier with him partly as well because he's a man.
Yeah.
Like, because like skin is a bit rougher, a bit of like bristles around the chin,
And he's
a
very
bit more
stubbly and grey and wrinkly.
wrinkles.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
easier to do on CGI than her who's got like smooth, soft
Yeah,
skin,
yeah, yeah.
which in CGI just looks a bit rubbery.
It makes it feel more fake.
And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, that's
yeah,
not
she's
because
this smooth, hairless kind of. Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
yeah,
easy to be like,
yeah.
oh, look at all these wrinkles and textures on this man's face.
Yeah, I mean, if they put too many wrinkles, people were like, "Why is She-Hulk look so old?" You know,
Yeah,
they've obviously had
exactly.
to find this balance, and there was stories throughout of the CGI teams were being told like, "Make her less muscly, make her less muscly," and that's why the original teasers looked a bit unfinished because they've been battling this kind of design change throughout the
Yeah.
process. So you know, I don't think it was particularly unfinished here, but there
No,
was clearly a lot of discussion about how
I
to.
think it looks good enough. And
Yeah.
how many episodes is this? Is it 6?
I think
Like,
it's only 6, but I can quickly look it up while we're talking.
because I'm quite intrigued how it goes. Obviously, we saw Jamila Jamil's character right at the end briefly. She
Yeah.
didn't say anything, but it's like, here I am.
Well, she did. She came in and she had an American accent. She was like, "I'm here to do some." Oh, it's 9 episodes, so it's a fair bit
Okay,
longer.
cool.
But yeah, she's obviously posed to be like a recurring villain in some way.
Yeah.
I don't think she was as big as She-Hulk, but Jamila Jamil's like a
She's
tallish
tall
person,
anyway,
so I think
yeah.
it's kind of a match. She's, I think, Titania. You know
Yeah.
who she is? She's actually married to Carl Creel, the Absorbing Man.
Really?
Yeah, so they've
let's
got
bring Krill back.
yeah. I mean, I don't think. I think they'll probably cast him as someone a bit more
Yeah.
recognizable.
Although, like, he does turn up in like 6 seasons of Shield.
I mean, if he comes back, that's like that'd be a very subtle way of opening the floodgates to.
When me and Christina
Chloe
rewatching
Bennett.
Shield, I kind of forgot like how often he does come back. He's like
first in it with when the just before it's who is it the lady who is there's a woman who comes in and she's like a character for a bit. She loses her arm.
Yeah,
She
back in
grabs the
season
thing,
1.
yeah, and
But
she's
yeah,
played by the woman who plays Xena Warrior Princess. That's who she's played by. Lucy Lawless.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's he comes in like episode 2 or something of Shield.
Oh, is he in that early? Right.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
So I was like,
right.
oh shit. And then he hangs around for like ages.
Because he comes back in this one I'm thinking of. Yeah, yeah.
Because he's there when they have the whole storyline with Ruby.
That's who I'm talking about, Ruby. No, Ruby's the one who goes into Inhuman, Spiky Inhuman.
No, that's
no, Ruby is who I'm thinking of. Lucy
the blonde.
Lawless. Who the fuck is Ruby?
Who's the general's daughter when they're doing?
Oh yes, yeah.
Who Yo-Yo cuts her throat.
Yeah.
Who is in?
She
stuff.
cuts, yeah. She's from like Disney Channel stuff. Yeah,
but
yeah. She looks like a doll. She looks like a Bratz doll.
She does.
She's got like very doll-like features.
But yeah, like Krill's like all the way there, and it's like
it's
shit.
One of the things that the few comics that I've read that has Carl the Crusher Creel in it. He always has like a what do you call it, like a ball on a chain thing. That's like his weapon. But they never do that as far as I remember through the whole thing. But yeah, I'm pretty sure him and Titania are married and they're like a villainous / slightly, anti-hero couple. So that's who I'm pretty sure Jamila Jamil's playing. But yeah, I'm interested to see some legal drama mixed with kind of probably not so many courtroom fights, but like she'll have to do a fight out a bit like,
have a fight and then go to court and explain herself.
Yeah, a bit like a couple other series we've watched in the past.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm sure we will come back to that.
Yeah. I did really like
projects.
that final bit where she does do that and then she steps back into her shoes. I thought it was like, okay, yeah, she's got a handle on this. Like, it's quite cool. Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to actually, there's an episode out tonight, so probably won't watch it now because it's a bit late.
I thought it was Thursdays it was coming out.
I think the first one was Thursdays, but I just saw when I was had that tab open that it was out today.
I will watch it tomorrow night.
Yes. So we'll be doing probably doubles.
Yeah.
most weeks now with She-Hulk and not Death on the Nile.
House of the Dragon.
We're watching Death on the Nile every week and discussing
I
it.
just realised we're going back to Christina's family this weekend. I'm coming back on Monday to watch House of the Dragon.
Yeah. So we'll have to record on
but
Tuesday.
Yeah, but I think Christina's might be staying a bit longer.
So you might
have to watch House of the Dragon without her.
Yeah. I mean, even if we just watched episode 1, we can talk about it. Indeed, I know you want to watch it. It's not what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Just pretend you haven't watched it, and she might listen to this episode and find out.
Yeah, and there was times in that episode where she was like, "Who's that?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's bloody blah."
That's Jon Snow.
Yeah, Rhys Ifans is in it as well. I didn't realize.
Does he play Jon Snow? Wow,
no, he
God.
plays.
I can't believe Jon Snow came back.
He plays Otto Hightower, Hand of the King.
I can't believe Otto Hightower's in there. Of the Hightower family.
Yeah.
From Hightower, New Orleans. Now let me guess, Carth. No, he's not like they're from somewhere in the middle of Westeros.
The Riverlands.
Yeah,
like
from the Riverlands, like a big high tower in the Riverlands.
No, I think they're actually from the Reach, like near the Tyrells.
Yeah, that's what I mean, the middle of the Reach.
Which is like the southwest.
Oh, from the Tyrells. Yeah.
No, it's,
we should play that
Reach.
Game of Thrones board game again, shouldn't we?
We should, but
it
takes like an hour to
set
remind us
up
all of the rules.
and then 6 hours to play. Anyway, I think that is probably enough for today. Would you agree?
Yes. Oh, that Old Town. That's their places where all the maesters go to get their chains.
From those high towers in the chain towers.
I mean, there's high towers all across Westeros.
Those high towers.
Yes. Anyway, if you enjoy listening to this podcast,
of course you do.
As I hope you do, give us those 5 stars. For those of you that have already done that in weeks and months past, sorry to keep repeating it. I'm probably sure you can probably go into another app and do it again.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, do that.
So thanks. And if you haven't given us 5 stars before, what you waiting for?
What you waiting for?
I was thinking the same thing, like going out loud. So yeah, give us all 5 of those,
or 10 stars if that's the maximum. The maximum amount of stars is what we want.
All the stars in the sky on your podcast listening application. But you can get in contact with us directly as well. If you are, in a project, if you're Papa Asidu, that would be.
I actually saw a trailer
great.
for something with him in, and I was like, I know that guy.
Yeah, it's George.
It's George, unknown surname.
We did hear his surname, I can't remember. But if you are in anything, great, get in contact. If you're not, we'd love to hear from you anywhere, and you can get in contact with us quite easily, can't you, Sam?
You can send us a lovely little email at theprojectpod@gmail.com, or if you want to contact us and follow us on social medias, no matter what those are, you can find those in the link tree in the episode description, along with what are they called? Time codes. If you want to go back to the start and listen again, I don't think it counts for our downloads, but it counts for your pleasure.
Oh, yeah, that would be good.
Also, please do recommend this to friends and family if you think they would like to hear about the whole of our Lazarus Project thing.
I reckon they would.
Or if you want to hear them hear someone talk about She-Hulk, or someone's talk about She-Hulk, this would be the place to be.
If you haven't got like Now TV or Sky, this is the only place you can listen all about the Lazarus Project. Yeah.
And we are also the premier She-Hulk podcasts.
We are the number one.
We talked about that whole thing in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
How many podcasts take half an hour to talk about that?
They'd spend ages. You might as well watch the episode.
You might as well watch the episode. So just, there's something for everyone, and you need to pitch that to your family. Otherwise, you might as well just not be listening, okay?
But you can still listen.
You might as well not be listening.
You can still listen. But do spread the word. Set your own personal project of telling at least one person about the project.
Fantastic.
That should definitely be a thing, like your own personal project.
I
Yeah.
told this person.
Yeah, email us in your personal projects as
Yeah.
well. That'd be quite a fun thing.
You know what?
actually.
That would be. So that's so we do our personal projects, then we do one of yours. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. We get enough emails about, lovely comments and just, criticism that we tend to just put straight in the bin.
Like,
But something specific,
if it's just like, oh, I watched House of the Dragon.
but if you
care.
write personal project before it,
Yeah. If you've done like a wonderful ice sculpture.
oh no, if they watch House of the Dragon, they can tell us what they thought about it and we'll read it out.
That too. But also, if you've done an ice sculpture of the Project logo,
Yeah.
we want to hear about that.
And send it to us as well. The actual ice sculpture.
How do people deliver ice sculptures?
In
a chilled van?
Refrigerated vans, yeah, I'd imagine. Yeah.
Where would we keep it?
In our bellies.
Or the freezer.
That makes me fucking free. Anyway, this part has gone on for almost too long. And before it gets too long, I'm going to say thanks for listening, and we will see you shortly.
I will hear you next week.
And I'll see you in Libya.
Ljubljana.
I'll see you in Ljubljana, biatch.
Yeah, if you've got any Slovenian listeners out here, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry too. Bye.
Bye.